Namaste, I'm Jyoti, founder, director of Ajanta Vihara Institute of Spiritual Sciences. Today in this video, I want to talk about trauma. In fact, something called as frozen trauma. Let us try to understand what is trauma. When we go through an experience in our life which shakes us up, creates a lot of grief, hopelessness, takes away the will to either heal, to live, to move on, leaves a scar, bad memories. When our body feels that tiredness, that exhaustion of emotionally breaking down, of being alone, being lonely. Any experience, any incident, any situation can take you into that trauma state. For some, it could be something as simple as, one day getting up and realizing that you have high temperature, so you cannot sit for your exam. It's not simple for those, of you that it has happened to. But I'm just trying to kind of, draw a comparison here for people to understand. Then, of course, a trauma could be losing a loved one. If you've met with an accident and you're going through recovery from there, now that recovery physically might happen faster, but emotionally can take a lifetime. Your trauma could be a result of delivering a baby, because suddenly the whole process was so complicated, and even if it wasn't complicated, your identity just changed overnight. You were expected to become a new person. That can cause trauma. Shifting, relocation, relationships breaking up. There are so many different reasons, different experiences of life, different situations, which can put us in a state of trauma. What is frozen trauma? Now, wondering whether you have it or not, I think almost all of us carry frozen trauma at some point or other. A lot of our frozen trauma comes from our inner child wounds. Do you have inner child wounds? How do you figure that out? I'm sure there can be multiple questions that will, lead you to kind of opening up to understanding frozen trauma, or even believing that you might be carrying it, right? So don't force yourself. This is not, this video is not to forcefully convince you. It is only for your awareness, and acceptance always is a solo journey. That is what I believe in. You can take a horse to a well, and you can tell the horse what the water is all about. Maybe it's had magical things in it, maybe it's got healing properties. You can tell a horse everything about the water, everything about the well, everything about the timeline, but to drink still remains his choice. Right? Here, horse is not the bad guy, right? And you're not the good guy telling him everything. You're just a source that has been aligned by universe to bring awareness to this horse. Same way, I am bringing to your awareness various insights, facts, channeling maybe some wisdom. It is entirely your choice to accept it or not to accept it, to reject it or to be in doubt, and slowly and gradually move towards acceptance. Acceptance is a solo journey. Is it wrong? No, I don't know what your past is. I don't know what all traumas you hold on to. I don't know your wounds. So allow yourself to decide what is going to be your pace, your timelines for accepting this. But we all carry inner child wounds. Do we carry inner child wounds because our parents have been bad, horrible, cold, indifferent towards us? Do we carry inner child wounds because we come from dysfunctional families? Do we carry inner child wounds because somebody exploited us, misbehaved with us, insulted us, humiliated us? Maybe, but even if you feel like, I have a lot of people who come to me and say, I had great childhood. I had wonderful childhood. My parents were so loving. And still, during therapies, we find out that they carry deep-rooted inner child wounds. They carry deep-rooted trauma. So trauma is not only environment induced. Trauma is not only an impact that you feel because of somebody else's action, inaction, behavior, words, or, neglect of you. Trauma can also come from how you react or respond to situations and people and experiences. Now, why we respond or react in a certain way is a different topic altogether. But each one of us respond or react to situations, to environments, people, experiences we have, bonds we form in a certain way. What might be very painful for me might turn out to be an okay experience for you. For some of you, you might just shrug it off and move on. Like, even children born in the same family have a different approach to how things are happening in the family, how parents are, interacting with them, engaging with them, neglecting them, or pampering them. Each child grows up to be an adult with a very different behavior, personality, thought process. Not only that, memories of the same incident in a very different way. Now, most of us choose to believe that, what we see is what settles into our subconscious, into our memory. No, it's more of what we feel. It's essentially what we feel. What we see is just to validate the narrative that we are feeling. In my therapies, I see so many times people start narrating a situation in a certain way. And when they get into a subconscious, or when we dig deeper even into our conscious energy scanning sessions or cognitive sessions, they realize that the way they were looking at it was very different from the way it actually happened. And it comes a lot in joint sessions and family sessions. So essentially, what is stored in your memory is how you felt in that moment, and your eyes will help you validate that narrative. So you might not even recollect a lot of it. Even when we get into subconscious, the first thing people start experiencing is how they felt the pain, what trauma they went through. And then slowly, gradually, once they accept that, yes, this was my trauma, this was what I went through, or that person was not nice to me, and once they start to accept it and they start to move into a more healing space for self, and also letting go what others did, and trying to practice forgiveness, is when they actually realize that there is another side to this coin, which is how that person actually responded, or maybe how that person ended up projecting their fears onto you. So mind is a complex place to exist in, and it has so many rooms. It's like a house with so many rooms, and you can just, it's like a maze, you can just lose yourself into it. Each room reveals a new narrative, a new story. Each room carries memories which are based on what you felt then. So, and imagine you're moving all the time in these rooms in this house, and some are dark, some are dense, some are heavy. And it takes us a while to move out of a room that's dark and dense. It takes us hardly a few seconds to move around in a room that's lit, and to move out of that room and go to another room. If the whole house is lit up, it just takes a few seconds or minutes to cover the whole house, irrespective of how huge the place is. But if it is dense and dark, even a house with 2 rooms will take maybe 10 times longer than a house that's lit. That is what happens when you are carrying frozen trauma. Frozen trauma is like this house which is pitch dark. It's the house that is not only pitch dark, but it also has tightly shut doors. And you don't know whether to pull the door towards you to open or to push the door inside to get in. And it's so pitch dark that you don't know you to navigate, through that darkness to find your way to push or pull that door to open up. Now that can take a long time, right? And that is how even to heal from frozen trauma can take a long time. And it's not a work of conscious because um, you might not even remember, or you might remember just 10% or 15% or 20% of what you felt then. You might remember it as a memory, for sure. There are people who remember, like even when they were a year old or 2 years old, they remember that memory as something that they saw, so as an image, as a moving memory or as a still memory, or words, that people said, or their action, how the body language was. But most of the times people don't remember. In fact, almost every time people don't remember the emotion involved, what they felt. They will remember reactions of others, how my mom shouted, how my sister was angry, how my uncle left the room because he was so upset, how my grandmom became sad. But they remember that all as an observer. Most of us remember memories as an observer because that's easier to deal with. So when you start to allow these memories to be felt, is when you will realize there are layers and layers. There are layers and layers of cold snow, where this trauma is still frozen and it keeps coming out as something or other. Every time you're triggered, and you experience the similar emotions, maybe the environment might be different, maybe the situation might be different, maybe the timelines are different, people are different. But if the emotions are similar, the combination of emotions are similar, uh, between the people, and of course you being the core, not just an observer, then you'll get triggered. It's like as if somebody is thawing your snow ice. So and every time you'll get triggered, and every time you'll react, and every time there'll be an emotion felt, and you'll not understand where is that emotion coming from. And some of you who are not very comfortable with being vulnerable, some of you are not very comfortable being expressive in any way, not only to talking to people, but like some of us like to write, like I like to write, I like to communicate. I mean, I like to do emotional freedom therapy by writing. So there are people who like to write, there are people who like to listen, there are people who like to record. There are people who like to listen. When I say listening to others' traumatic stories, to kind of allow, that assurance that I'm not the only one suffering, or sharing with other people, through expression of words, sharing your thoughts and all. If you do not allow an expression, and if you do not allow yourself to to deal with the traumas at the time that the traumas were caused, at the time you felt it, it starts settling inside and keeps getting compressed further and further inside, till the time it becomes hard. It becomes hard, like a stone. All that emotion is so deep inside, and it's pressing, and you're lying another layer and another layer and another layer. It just becomes this really rigid, compact mass of energy, which cannot move, which cannot flow, which cannot disintegrate, because everything's come together. All those energy atoms have come together. But it will show up as I said, as a reaction. You might feel very angry, very depressed, very volatile emotionally, or it can come out as a physical ailment, as a sickness. For example, cancer normally happens, in fact, most of the times happens when people are not able to process their trauma, when people are ignorant of their trauma and ignorant of the anger and grief they're experiencing as a result of that experience, and they choose to deal it head on by just moving on, like dust yourself off, get into a functional space, and here I'm ready with another smile to deal with the world, or with another frown, or with another, lashing out, but not lashing out in terms of lashing out, you know, as a result of that emotion, but generally out of the mistrust that you have developed. But I have seen some of the kindest people, so the most beautiful, amazing human beings who have never raised their voice, on anyone, or hardly have raised their voice, have never experienced anger in terms of, being rude to people, being hurtful to people. I've seen such kind of people also suffering from cancer. And that is because they're in denial of this emotion called anger being such an powerful force. And anger comes out of grief. When you feel hurt by someone, when you feel hurt by somebody's action and inaction, is when grief happens, and this grief results then in anger. And if you go into a denial of it and you say, no, I'm not going to be angry on that person, I'm not going to be angry on anything, I'm just going to be into this very saintly space of not allowing myself to be affected. If you're doing it as a part of your meditation, great. If you're doing it as a part of your self-awareness, acceptance, great. But if you're doing it just because you don't want to deal with that negative emotion, you don't want to get stuck in that negative emotion with that person, or you don't want to end up hating that person, or you don't want to um, end up being in a very conflicting or confrontational space with that person. Lot of us who are very sweet and don't want to deal with anger also are conflict avoidance, right? We don't want confrontations, we do not want conflicts. You see, we don't do very well in a bullying situation. If somebody is even emotionally bullying, is more aggressive, is more persuasive, is more trying to prove their point, we will write, okay, and leave it at that. But emotions are emotions, right? It's energy at the end, and we are energy. Each atom in our body is energy. So imagine 99.9% of us is energy. 99.9% of us is emotion, all emotions. And so if you do not acknowledge that and allow it to come to its peak and then let it be released, it's going to sit inside, and it'll keep sitting inside and piling up, and a frozen trauma is formed, which eventually manifests as cancer cells. I know there are a lot of you who might not agree to what I'm saying. Sure, you can hold on to your narrative, your belief systems. I'm not here to challenge any one of you. I'm not here to challenge medical system. I'm not here to challenge your journey, your medication, your thoughts on it. I'm just here presenting what my experience tells me, what dealing with so many patients, so many people who've had such deep suffering because of an ailment like a health condition like cancer. Just sharing that in the briefest way possible. So that's one example of frozen trauma. Then kidneys, your liver, your pancreas, your spleen, anywhere you're experiencing anything, you're almost at the verge of losing your organ, or there's a very severe health condition, that is a frozen trauma. And if you do not allow yourself, as I said in my earlier video, to accept and be authentic to yourself and accept your pain and say, okay, I am in pain, and it is coming from the way I process my emotions, the way I'm attached to pain and fears, thus creating this suffering. You will keep suffering from that physical ailment, or keep suffering from tissue damage, organ damage, or um, might it might go to the extent of you losing something. A lot of people also feel pain in their body and they complain that, oh my God, my pain's not going. It's very spastic in nature. If the pain is very spastic in nature and keeps coming and keeps repeating, and you have it for some time and then it disappears and then it comes back, it is frozen trauma. It is frozen trauma. And uh, of course, the treatments work. All kind of treatments have their good effects. But until you haven't dealt with that core, the emotion, that trauma, that emotion that is holding that trauma together as this frozen mass of energy, um, it'll keep coming back. It'll keep coming back in some way or other. So, say, for example, you got something on your shoulder here and you feel this pain and you're not able to lift your arm up. You go for physiotherapy, you go for Reiki, you go for chakra healing, you apply something, you take strong medication, maybe surgically you get something done based on advice of your doctor, it'll go away and go away for quite some time, how depending on how receptive you are. But if you haven't dealt with that trauma, this might move from here to here, move from here to here, move from here to here, or go deeper in at a cellular level, causing you depression, loneliness at a later stages of your life. And that's the reason also why when we start to grow old and we start to grow old is not a right word, right? So when we start to mature up and start to move into a stage of our life with our experience, our maturity, where emotional needs are recognized more by us, which of course happens, in your 50s, 60s, further down, is when you start to experience a lot of pain and a lot of loneliness and a lot of depression and a need to connect, a need to be with loved ones, or need to be with your friends and family. So sometimes we just think that, I am 20, I'm 25, I'm 30, I'm doing pretty well. In fact, I have so many times people come to me and say, oh, thankfully, especially the age group between, say, let's talk about young adults. So from 18 to 35, different levels of young adults. They just sit in front of me and they're like, oh, I don't have any problem. Thankfully, I keep very fit. I do this, I do that. And then when I start to ask them how they feel emotionally, or I start to ask them how their relationship is with them in their alone space, or, with food, with living alone, or with relationships and all, that's when things start to come out. And then we talk about pain, we talk about various kind of experiences they have, whether it's coming as dreams, it's coming as anxiety, it's coming as stomach upset, or it's coming at migraine, or it's coming as patterns of suffering and disappointments and frustrations in their life, in the way of things not working out for them, or things being very, very tough, where they are sapping out their energy. So better to start young, so that we don't have too much of frozen trauma. If you are experiencing any signs of frozen trauma, and how to figure out the signs, I've already spoken, but let's just try to understand it in a much more linear way, so our mind captures it better. One, if there is any physical pain in you, if there is a physical pain in you, which is a recurring pain, of course, no pain should be ignored. But if there is a recurring pain and it doesn't go no matter what you do, then that means there's a frozen trauma. Okay. Second, if you have one emotion which is repeating again and again, for example, no matter what you try, you keep getting into these depression cycles. No matter what you try, you keep getting into this sense of lack, jealousy, and jealousy not being a bad thing right now. And we'll talk about jealousy in detail in some other video. Or you keep getting angry, you're short tempered, no matter what you try, there's a realization that you're angry, but you still keep getting angry. Or you use words which are hurting to others, you want to you don't want to hurt people, but you still end up hurting people, either through your action, inaction, or words, or although you are kind, but you still cannot be nice to people, that means there is a frozen trauma. That means it needs to be dealt with. Um, if you are having, say, physically, let's try to understand, if you're having, in women, if you're having menstrual cycle, that's painful. You have a lot of pain, or you go into an emotional fluctuation, and it's happening again and again, or most of the times, or you start to feel very weak and drained out, you know or you have a need to eat a lot of food, or have no need to eat anything, no desire to eat anything, there's a frozen trauma there. If you are suffering from blood pressure, vertigo, spondylitis, frozen trauma. So you might tell me that, what is this? Everything you're saying is frozen trauma, but I cannot change the truth. Truth remains truth, right? So if there is a recurring pattern of anything, there is a frozen trauma, and needs to be dealt with. Can it be dealt with? Of course, it can be dealt with. If you listen to my earlier video, I have given you the first step to dealing with it, which is being authentic and accepting your pain. So think about it, what I have said today. And if you are experiencing any of it, and even till now, if you were not aware, start to make an observation. Start to be more mindful about what's happening to your body, to your moods, to your reaction and responses to other people's emotions, and how they say what they say. Because that's where it starts. Until you do not know yourself, how are you going to work on yourself? And if you say that I don't need any work, that is for you to decide. I will respect your choice, but I believe each one of us require work, not because we are damaged or bad or weak compared to other people, but because we all want to enjoy abundance, and we all want to be in that beautiful state of bliss and happiness. And another truth is that not only do we want, not only do we deserve, but we can actually experience it. Trust me, we can experience it. With this, leaving you here with a thought. Till next time, stay tuned in love and light.